Today we will discuss the course policy formulation and analysis. As you remember, this course is found under the theme of theme for gender advocacy and development. So it is among the courses which are found under this theme. So this course has two specific objectives according to your test blueprint. The first objective of this course, or the first objective of policy formulation and analysis, is describe the nature of a problem for which a policy solution is sought. So this is the first objective or competency of the course, policy formulation and analysis. And the other one is monitor the outcomes of policy choice. So those two specific objectives are parts of the course, policy formulation and analysis. So under this course, for your exam, there are 7 items or questions. So 7 questions will be prepared based on those two specific objectives. So the tutorial will focus on what is the nature of a problem for which a policy solution is sought, and how we monitor the outcomes of policy choices. So we will discuss based on those two specific objectives, but before that, I will give you a highlight about the general nature of the course. As an introductory part, I will give you a general tutorial about policy formulation and analysis. Okay? So ምንድነው እንደ አጠቃላይ ይሄ ኮርስ በቴስት ብሉፕሪንቱ መሰረት ሁለት ስፔሲፊክ ኦብጀክቲቮች ነው ያሉት እዚህ ጋር እንደምታዩት። ነገር ግን ትንሽ ሻሎ የሆነ ይመስለኛል። ኮርሱን በደንብ ታች የሚያደርጉ አይደሉም። ኖርማሊ እነዚህ ሁለት ስፔሲፊክ ኦብጀክቲቮች ምናልባት ከነዚህ ስፔሲፊክ ኦብጀክቲቮች ጋር የተያያዙ ነገር ግን ሌሎች ፓርት የኮርሱን ሌሎች ፓርቶችን መሰረት ያደረጉ ጥያቄዎች ሊወጡ ስለሚችሉ በመጀመሪያ ደረጃ አጠቃላይ ኮርሱን እንደ ሳመሪ ሃይላይት ሰጣቸዋለሁ። ዜን እነዚህ ስፔሲፊክ ኦብጀክቲቮች ላይ ደግሞ ቤዝድ አድርጌ መጨረሻ ላይ የተወሰኑ ሀሳቦችን አነሳላችኋለሁ ማለት ነው። ስለዚህ አሁን ቀጥታ የምንሄደው መጀመሪያ what is the general description of policy formulation and analysis. So we will summarize this course beginning from chapter 1 up to the end. So you have to prepare your notes and you have to take some notes. If you have any question, if you have anything which is not clear regarding to this tutorial, you can comment me after the video is uploading, and even if you can contact me by my phone or my email. Thank you very much. So now let us go to the main tutorial of the course, policy formulation and analysis. Okay, let's begin our session by understanding the foundation of this course, the process of policy analysis. So we will begin this course by defining first what is policy analysis, because this is an essential tool for evaluating and shaping policies in a ways that respond to real community needs. Okay, so in this tutorial we'll cover the contents of first what is policy analysis mean. So after we are correctly defining policy analysis, then we'll go to the types of policy analysis. Okay, so we'll discuss the different types of policy analysis. After discussing the different types of policy analysis, we'll go to about system thinking in policy analysis. Okay, what is system thinking in policy analysis? Then after discussing about this, we will go to the 3 approaches to policy analysis. Policy analysis have its own approaches. So we will discuss what are those 3 approaches. Okay. So in chapter 1 of the course, we will cover those pointers. Then we'll go to chapter 2. So let us begin by defining the session by understanding the foundation of this course, the process of policy analysis. So what is policy analysis? What is policy analysis? As you remember in your classroom learning, policy analysis is a multidisciplinary technique. That means we use policy analysis not only in specific fields, we use in multidisciplinary fields. For example, that means it doesn't come from one academic field. Okay, it combines public administration, economics, political science, sociology, social work, gender, etc. So in every discipline there is policy analysis. Okay, it is only vary the purpose of the policy analysis. So first of all, you have to understand that policy analysis is a multidisciplinary technique. Okay, and it helps us to decide which policy option best achieve specific social, economic, or developmental goals. Okay, so this is the other point of policy analysis. Okay, it helps us to define. It helps us to define, decide which policy options best achieve specific social, economic, or development goals of each discipline. Okay, each discipline. The other important point related to policy analysis is it is used not only by governments but also it is applied by different non-government organizations and large institutions to solve complex problems. Okay, so it is used by different organizations. Okay, the other point is what are the types of policies? What are the types of policies? So there are two major fields of policy analysis. As you see from this slide, there are two major fields of policy analysis. So the first one is descriptive analysis. It looks back ወደ ኋላ ተመልሰን ኢምፕሊመንት ተደርገው የነበሩ ፖሊሲዎች ምን አይነት ውጤት እንዳመጡ አናላይዝ የምናደርግበት ሜተድ ነው። we call it descriptive analysis. It asks what policies were in place, ምን አይነት ፖሊሲዎች ነበሩ, were thus implemented properly, እነዚህ ፖሊሲዎችስ በትክክል ተግባራዊ ሆነዋል ወይ, what were their outcome, ያመጡት ውጤትስ ምን ነበር የሚለውን አናላይሲስ የምንሰራ ከሆነ we call it descriptive analysis. ለምሳሌ ከ5 ዓመት ወይ ከ10 ዓመት በፊት ሲተገበር የነበረ ፖሊሲ አሁን ግን ተግባራዊ የማይሆን የዛን ፖሊሲ አተገባበር አናላይሲስ የምንሰራ ከሆነ ያመጣውን ለውጥ እንዴት እንደተተገበረ ቴክኒኮቹን we call it descriptive policy analysis. Okay, descriptive policy analysis እንለዋለን ማለት ነው። The other one is analytical policy analysis የምንለው አለ። this one is prescriptive or analytic policy የምንለው it looks forward. okay, ልዩነታቸው ይሄኛው ወደ ኋላ የነበሩ ፖሊሲዎችን ሲያጠና analytical or prescriptive analysis የምንለው ደግሞ ወደፊት የሚመለከትና ወደፊት ፎርሙሌት ሊደረጉ የሚችሉ ፖሊሲዎችን አስቀድሞ አናላይሲስ የሚያደርግ ነው ማለት ነው። ሶ by nature it is proactive ነው። okay, it asks what should we do now, አሁን ምን ማድረግ አለብን, what new policies can solve this issue, አሁን ያለውን ችግር ምን አይነት ፖሊሲዎች ሊቀርፉት ይችላሉ, what are the expected outcomes, ምን አይነት ውጤት ሊመጣ ይችላል. so it is a matter of time. okay, so we can classify the types of policy analysis into descriptive analysis and prescriptive analysis. so ኤግዛማችሁ ላይ እነዚህ ሁለት የፖሊሲ አናላይሲስ አይነቶች በምርጫም ሊሆን ይችላል በተለያየ መንገድም ሊሆን ይችላል ከመጡ በዚህ መንገድ አንደርስታንድ እንድታረጉ ነው የሚፈልገው። ኦኬ፣ በዚህ መንገድ አንደርስታንድ እንድታረጉ ነው የሚፈልገው። the other one is what are the three approaches to policy analysis? okay, okay, So you have to always remember there are three types of policy analysis approaches. The first one is analysis centric policy analysis approach. Okay, analysis centric. So this approach focus on technical solutions to individual problems. Okay, it focus on individual problems. And the other one is the policy process approach. Policy process approach. This one. This is examines political processes and stakeholder roles. Okay. If our aim is to examine the political process of the country, or if you are plan to make analysis of stakeholder roles, we have to implement policy process analysis approach. The other one is meta policy approach. The meta policy approach. So this one is explains structural factors influencing policies. Okay, ፖሊሲን ኢንፍሉዌንስ የሚያደርጉ ስትራክቸራል ፋክተሮች ምንድን ናቸው ብለን ስትራክቸራል ቤዝድ የሆኑ ፕሮብሌሞች ላይ የምናጠና ከሆነ we have to choose meta policy approach. But if you want to make analysis on technical solutions for individual problems, we have to conduct what? Analysis centric. But if our interest is to examine political processes and stakeholder roles, we have to choose political processes. So there are three types of policy approaches, okay, in policy analysis. Analysis centric, policy process, and meta policy. So those policy approaches will be included in your exam questions, so you have to see the difference between those three policy approaches. Okay, the other important point is about policy relevant knowledge. Okay, what is policy relevant knowledge? Policy analysis addresses 5 types of questions. Okay, there are 5 types of questions in making policy analysis. So you have to have this knowledge in order to conduct a policy analysis. So if you are asked to answer the different types of policy related knowledges or policy analysis knowledges, you have to identify these 5 types of policy analysis questions. Okay, the first one is policy problem. Okay, policy problem. First of all, you have to identify what is the problem which is found in the policy. Okay, this is the first type, or this is the first question in conducting policy analysis. Okay, so you have to identify and defining the problem. መጀመሪያ ምንድነው ፖሊሲ ውስጥ ያለውን ፕሮብሌም ምን ማድረግ አለባችሁ? አይደንቲፋይ ማድረግ ወይም ዲፋይን ማድረግ። this is the first step in making policy analysis. Okay, the other one is expected policy outcomes. Okay, there is a policy problem, and here is expected policy outcomes. So you have to be forecasting the consequences of the policy alternatives. Okay, ያ ፖሊሲ ሊያመጣ የሚችለው ውጤት ምንድን ነው የሚለውን እንደ አንድ ፖሊሲ አናላይሲስ እንደሚሰራ ሰው ኤክስፔክትድ ፖሊሲ አውትካም ማድረግ አለባችሁ፣ ዲፋይን ማድረግ መቻል አለባችሁ ማለት ነው። So this is the second step in policy analysis. The other one is about preferred policies. Okay, choosing policies based on expected outcomes and values. ፖሊሲዎች ምን ማድረግ ነው? ፕሪፈር ማድረግ። የተለያዩ ፖሊሲዎች አሉ። ከነዛ ፖሊሲዎች ውስጥ የተሻለ ውጤት ሊኖረው የሚችለው based on your interest, you have to prefer the best policies. So okay, the other policy relevant knowledge is about observed policy outcomes. Okay, what are the observed policy outcomes? So you have to identify the observed policy outcomes. What does that mean? You have to forecast consequences, or you have to evaluate actual results of implemented policies. Okay, it is related to evaluation. Okay, it is related to evaluation. You have to evaluate the observed policy outcomes. So evaluating actual results of implemented policies is the fourth step, or the fourth relevant knowledge in implementing policy analysis. Okay, ያ ፖሊሲ ያመጣው አክቹዋል የሆነ ሪዛልት ትክክለኛ ውጤት ምንድን ነው የሚለውን እሱን ፎርካስት ማድረግ ማለት ነው። The other one is policy performance. Okay, the other one is it's policy performance. Policy performance is assessing how well policies achieve their goals. Okay, is the policy is achieve its goal or not? Okay, so you have to question this one. You have to evaluate the performance of that policy implementation. Is the policy is implemented in the way which is planned, or it is implemented inversely? So you have to evaluate the performance of the policy. This is the fifth and the last one. So when we talk about policy relevant knowledge, policy analysis address those 5 types of questions. So you have to answer, if you are asked what are the 5 types of questions during policy analysis which we have to address. So you have to answer. The first one is policy problem. That means we have to identify and defining problems. And the second one is we have to forecast consequences of policy alternatives. That means we have to forecast expected policy outcomes. And the third one is preferred policies. That means we have to choose policies based on expected outcomes. And the fourth one is we have to identify observed policy outcomes, or we have to evaluate actual results of implemented policies. And the last one is we have to identify policy performance, or assessing how well policies achieve their goals. Okay, so those are the 5 types of questions during policy analysis. Okay, the next part is the policy analysis method. Policy analysis method. So we will discuss what are the methods of policy analysis. Okay, so there are 5 types of policy analysis method. The first one is problem structuring. Problem structuring. This is the first method during policy analysis. What does that mean, problem structuring? You have to defining the problem. Okay, you have to identify the problem. Without identifying the specific problem, you will not go to the next steps, or you will not conduct a policy analysis. So problem structuring, or defining the problem, is the first step in policy analysis. Okay, the other method is forecasting, or predicting outcomes. Okay, forecasting is the second method. You have to forecast the future. You have to forecast the future. You have to predict the expected outcomes. ያ ፖሊሲ ምን አይነት ውጤት ሊያመጣ እንደሚችል ፎርካስት ማድረግ መተንበይ መቻል አለባችሁ። ይህን ማድረግ የማትችሉ ከሆነ ፖሊሲ አናላይሲስ ለመስራት መሄድ የለባችሁም ማለት ነው። ሶ ፕሮብሌሙን ዲፋይን ከማድረግ ብቻ ሳይሆን ያ ፖሊሲ ምን አይነት ውጤት ሊያመጣ ይችላል፣ የዛሬ 10 ዓመት፣ የዛሬ 20 ዓመት፣ የዛሬ 30 ዓመት ፖሊሲዎች ምን አይነት ውጤት ሊያመጡ እንደሚችሉ ፎርካስት ተደርጎ ተተንብዮ ነው ወደ ስራ የሚገባውና ሶ forecasting is the second step. Okay, the third step is prescription. Prescription is the third step. What does that mean, prescription? Okay, I think you are familiar with this word. It is mostly used in medical or clinical investigations. Prescription means recommending policies. Okay, ፖሊሲዎችን ማድረግ አለባችሁ፣ ሪከመንድ ማድረግ አለባችሁ። መጀመሪያ ፕሮብሌሙን ስትራክቸር አረጋችሁ ወይም ዲፋይን አረጋችሁ፣ ዴን ፖሊሲው ወደፊት ሊያመጣ የሚችለውን ውጤት ወይም አውትካም ፎርካስት አረጋችሁ ኦር ፕሬዲክት አረጋችሁ። ዴን the third step is you have to recommend policies, what we call prescription. Okay, then the fourth method is monitoring. Okay, monitoring is the fourth step in policy analysis. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Monitoring means. Monitoring means observing policy outcomes. Okay, you have to check whether the planned policy objectives are achieved or not. So you have to monitor the implementation of that policy. So monitoring is the fourth step. ማድረግ ነው እነዛ ፎርካስት ያስደረጋቸዋቸው እነዛ ሪኮመንድ ያደረጋቸዋቸው የፖሊሲ አማራጮች ኢምፕሊመንት መሆናቸው ምን ማድረግ ነው መከታተል ማለት ነው ሞኒተር ማድረግ for example in case of our country the parliament is responsible for monitoring of the government policies are implemented or not okay መንግስት የሚያወጣቸው ፖሊሲዎች በትክክል ተግባራዊ መሆን አለመሆናቸውን ለምሳሌ የሀገሪቱ ፓርላማ የመከታተል ስልጣን አለውና እንደዚህ አይነት ኦርጋናይዜሽኖችን በመጠቀም you have to monitor the forecasted and recommended policies. Okay, this is the fourth step in policy analysis method. And the last one is evaluation. Okay, evaluation. That means you have to assess policy performance. We are talking about policy performance, but you have to evaluate about the level of the policy implementation or the policy performance. Okay, so in order to summarize, policy analysis method is include 5 steps. The first one is problem structuring, the second one is forecasting, the third one is prescription or recommending policies, the fourth one is monitoring, and the last one is evaluation. Okay, so you have to remember those pointers wherever the questions will be arise in many ways. So those are the policy analysis methods. Next we will discuss the forms of policy analysis. Okay, what is the forms of policy analysis? So policy analysis have different forms. For example, policy analysis can be prospective or prospective means predicting future outcomes. So this is one form of policy analysis. Prospective means if you are predicting the future outcomes of the policy, we call it prospective. Okay, and policy analysis will be retrospective. Okay, it is the opposite of prospective. That means you are analyzing past policies. Okay, or we call it ex post. So if you are analyzing the implementation of or the outcome of past policies, we call it retrospective policy. And the other one is policy analysis can be descriptive. Okay, it will be descriptive. That means explaining cause and consequences. Okay, if the policy is explaining the cause and consequences of that policy, we call it descriptive analysis. And the fourth one is normative policy analysis. This means you are evaluating policies based on different values. Okay, if you are analyzing or evaluating policies based on different values such as efficiency, effectiveness, equity, responsiveness, liberty, enlightenment, security, and so on. So if you are evaluating such policy based on such values, we call it normative analysis. So wherever whenever we are talking about forms of policy analysis, you have to remember this 4 types: prospective, which is predicting future outcomes, or we call it ex ante, and retrospective, which is the opposite of the first one, or prospective, which is analyzing past policies, or we call it ex post, and descriptive, explaining causes and consequences of certain policies, and the last one is normative, evaluating policies based on different values. So You have to remember this point. So this is all about chapter 1 of policy formulation and analysis. So based on this few highlights, you have to go through the entire contents of the chapter, okay? So let us go to chapter 2. It is about policy analysis in the policy making process. So uh, policy analysis has evolved historically from ancient legal codes to modern evidence-based policy making processes. As you remember, policy analysis is not starting today or in recent years. It has a long story. It began from the ancient legal codes during early origins, so it has its own process. Early efforts in, for example, we can mention in Mesopotamia and India, it was focused on forecasting and organizing urban societies. So it is began in Mesopotamia. The 19th century introduced empirical quantitative research, while in the 20th century, so professionalism of social science and the rise of policy-oriented research. So policy analysis has its own evolution, its own process. So it is not starting in recent days, okay? So if we are talking about the evolution of policy analysis in this way, let us go to the models of policy change, okay? This is the most important one in chapter 2. Okay, the other part of our discussion is in chapter 2, models of
Okay. The
policy
other
change,
part
okay?
of our discussion is
Understanding these
in
models
chapter 2,
helps us
models of
grasp how and why
policy change.
policies
Okay.
evolve over time. These models explain the logic, constraints, and political dynamics behind policy decisions and reforms, especially in complex and changing societies like our country, Ethiopia. So let's go through each of the 7K models one by one with real-world implication for gender and development work, okay? So the first model of policy change is comprehensive rationality. In this model, policy decisions are made through a logical and systematic process. Policymakers list all possible alternatives, weight their costs and benefits, and choose the most efficient option. It assumes complete information and rational actors, but in reality, this is often not achievable, okay? በጣም በርካታ አማራጮችን አስቀምጦ የትኛው አዋጭ ነው የሚለውን ኮስት ቤኔፊት ሰርተን ከነዛ ውስጥ የተሻለውን የምንመርጥበት የሞዴል ኦፍ ፖሊሲ ቼንጅ ዊ ኮል ኢት ኮምፕሬሄንሲቭ ራሽናሊቲ እንለዋለን ማለት ነው። ፎር ኤግዛምፕል ሚኒስትሪ ኦፍ ውሜን ኤንድ ቻይልድ ኢቫሉዌቲንግ ዌዘር ቱ ኢንቨስት ኢን maternal health care or girls education might use cost benefit analysis to determine which will bring the greatest long term impact for women in society, okay? ምሳሌ ሴቶች ህጻናት የሆነ ፖሊሲ ተግባራዊ ለማድረግ የተለያዩ አማራጮችን አስቀምጦ ከነዛ ውስጥ የትኛውን ብተገብር የትኛው አዋጭ ነው የትኛው አዋጭ አይደለም በሚል አንዱን ፖሊሲ ብቻ መርጦ ተግባራዊ ያደርግ ይችላል ማለት ነው። ስለዚህ ፕሮብሌም ቤዝድ ሳይሆን አዋጭነት ላይ መሰረት ያደረገ የፖሊሲ ኢምፕሊሜንቴሽን ሜተድ ነው ማለት ነው። ስለዚህ ብዙ ጊዜ it is not advisable, okay? It is not advisable. The other one is second based rationality. Second-based rationality. This model argues that democratic decision making doesn't always lead to the best outcomes due to conflicts in preferences and power struggles. Policies may not reflect a single rational decision, but a compromising among competing interests, okay? ምንድን ነው ዲሞክራቲክ የሆነ ዲሲሽን ሜኪንግ ለተሻለ ፖሊሲ አውትካም ይመራል ብሎ አያምንም። ስለዚህ it is only based on the best interests of the policy outcomes, okay? ፖሊሲው ሊያመጣ የሚችለው ውጤት ላይ ብቻ ቤዝ ተደርጎ የሚወሰን ውሳኔ we call it second based rationality, okay? The other one is disjointed incrementalism or the modeling through model ይለዋል አንዳንዴ here is policymakers avoid big decisions and instead make small gradual changes. It is a more practical approach when there is uncertainty or political risk. Okay, so policymakers in these types of policy decisions, they begin from where? From small decisions and they are go to the big decisions. Okay, they make small gradual changes, then they will go to the bigger policy decisions. So it is a more practical approach when there is uncertainty or political risk. እርግጠኛ በማትሆኑበት ሁኔታ ለምሳሌ የአምስት ዓመት ፖሊሲ ላይ እየተወያያችሁ ነገር ግን ከሁለት ዓመት ወር ከአንድ ዓመት በኋላ ምን ሊፈጠር እንደሚችል ያን ፖሊሲ አፌክት ሊያደርገው የሚችል ለምሳሌ የፖለቲካ ኢሹ የሴኩሪቲ ኢሹ ሊኖር ይችላል። ስለዚህ 5 ዓመት ብለን ከምንወስን ለአንድ ዓመት እንወስንና ከዛ እያየን በሂደት ሌላውን የፖሊሲ አፈጻጸም ዲሳይድ እናደርጋለን ብላችሁ ቀስ በቀስ ዲሳይድ እያደረጋችሁ ውጤቱን እያያችሁ የምትሄዱበት አይነት ሞዴል ኦፍ ፖሊሲ ቼንጅ ዊ ኮል ኢት ዲስጆይንትድ ኢንክሪሜንታሊዝም ብለን እንጠራዋለን ማለት ነው። ኦኬ ግራጁዋል የሆነ ቼንጅ ለውጡን እያየ የሚወሰን የፖሊሲ ውሳኔ ማለት ነው። ኦኬ Okay, the fourth types of model of policy change is bounded rationality. Okay, in these types of models change, peoples don't always make perfectly rational choices. They work within limits of time, knowledge, and resources, so they settle for good enough policies. Okay, they settle good enough policies. It is based on the available time, the available knowledge, and the available resources. Okay, if we decide on certain policies based on our available time, based on our available knowledge and resource, we call it bounded rationality. Okay, as you see from the name, bounded means it has its own boundary. Okay, so there may be time boundary, there may be knowledge boundary, there may be resource boundary, resource scarcity. So policymakers make good enough decisions due to certain constraints. Okay, የጊዜ ጥረት ኑሮብን የገንዘብ ጥረት ኑሮብን ወይም ደግሞ ያን ፖሊሲ ኢምፕሊመንት የሚያደርግ የተማረ የሰው ኃይል ወይም ለዛ ፖሊሲ ኢምፕሊሜንቴሽን የሚያስፈልገውን እውቀት የሚጠይቅ የሰው ኃይል ጥረት ኑሮብን ስለዚህ አይ በቃ የሚበቃውን ያክል ባይሆንም ለጊዜው ይሄንን እንስራ ብለን የምንወስነው የፖሊሲ ውሳኔ አይነት ዊ ኮል ኢት ባውንድድ ራሽናሊቲ እንለዋለን ማለት ነው። ለምሳሌ ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ነዳጅ አለ ይባላል አይደል? ነዳጅ አለ ይባላል፣ ግን ያንን ነዳጅ አውጥቶ መጠቀም የሚያስችል በቂ ፋይናንስ የለም፣ በቂ የሰው ኃይል እውቀት ያለው በዛ ዘርፍ የሰው ኃይል የለንም። ስለዚህ በዚህ ኢትዮጵያ አለይ በምትለው ነዳጅ ዙሪያ የምትወስነው ግን ጊዜያዊ ውሳኔ ሊኖር ይችላል። ለምሳሌ ለጊዜው ለውጭ ባለሀብቶች በኮንትራት ሰጥቶ የተወሰነ መጠን ያለው ነዳጅ አውጥቶ መጠቀም ወይ እነሱ አውጥተው 75%ን እነሱ 25%ን ኢትዮጵያ እንድትጠቀም ወይም 50%ን እነሱ 50%ን ደግሞ ኢትዮጵያ እንድትጠቀም እንደ ፖሊሲ አማራጭ ሊወሰን ይችላል። ግን ይሄ ውሳኔ አገሪቱን የሚጠቅም ትክክለኛ ውሳኔ ሆኖ አይደለም። ምን አይነት ውሳኔ ነው? we call it bounded rationality because this decision is decided based on what? based on constraints ባለብን ችግር ላይ ቤዝ ተደርጎ የተወሰነ ውሳኔ ነው። እጥረት ላይ ችግር ላይ መሰረት ተደርጎ የተወሰነ ውሳኔ ነው ማለት ነው። so the fundamental proposition of the critical coverage model is that policy change occurs the critical moment, so we call it bounded rationality የምንለው ለዛ ነው። okay, so the other one is the fifth model of policy change is about erotic rationality. Okay, erotic rationality. This model sees policy making as a process of asking and answering key questions. It values critical inquiry and problem framing more than just solutions. Okay, policy making involves questioning and answering. Okay, it is based on the cost of decision making should be incorporated into maximizing models. So if we are deciding our policies based on the scenarios, we call it rotating rationality. Okay, and the sixth one is simultaneous coverage convergence model. This model developed by John Kingdom explains policy changes as occurring when three streams are combined: problem, policy, and politics align at the same time. Okay, so if you are deciding certain policies based on the three streams, based on problems, based on our policy, and based on our political situations, we call it simultaneous convergence. Policy change occur when problem, policy, and policies are aligned. Okay, የሆነ ፖሊሲ ለውጥ የምናደርገው ሶስቱም ነገሮች ሲገጣጠሙ ብቻ ከሆነ ለምሳሌ የሆነ ችግር ከሆነ ፖለቲካል ችግር ጋር ሲገጥም የሆነ ማህበራዊ ችግር ከሆነ ፖለቲካዊ ችግር ጋር ሲገጥም እርግጠኛ ስንሆን ያኔ ፖሊሲውን ለመቀየር እንገደዳለን ማለት ነው። ሶ ዊ ኮል ኢት simultaneous convergence. So the last one is punctuated equilibrium. Okay, punctuated equilibrium. Most of the time policy systems are stable, but occasionally for example there may be external shocks like economic crisis, political revolutions, or global movements cause sudden large policy shifts. Okay, so there will be major policy changes occur due to external shocks and shifts in political beliefs. Okay, ፖሊሲያችንን እንድናስገድድ እንድንቀይር ኦር እንድናሻሽል የሚያስገድዱ ውጫዊ ምክንያቶች በሚፈጠሩበት ጊዜ ለምሳሌ ኢኮኖሚክ ክራይሲስ ተፈጥሮ የኢኮኖሚክ ክራይሲስ ገጥሞን ወይ ደግሞ የፖለቲካ አለመረጋጋት በዛ ፖሊሲ ምክንያትም ሊሆን ይችላል በሌላ ምክንያት ፖለቲካ አለመረጋጋት በሚገጥም ሰዓት ዓለም አቀፍ ጫናዎች በአንድም ሆነ በሌላ ምክንያት በሚኖሩበት ሰዓት ድንገተኛ የሆነ የፖሊሲ ለውጥ ሊደረግ ይችላል። ለምሳሌ አሁን በቅርብ መንግስት የገንዘብ ፖሊሲውን ላይ ማሻሻያ አድርጓል። ለምሳሌ የዶላር የምንዛሬ መጠን በፊት ከነበረበት እንዲጨምር ተደርጎ ዶላር በከፍተኛ ምንዛሬ ነው አሁን ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ እየተቀየረ ያለው ማለት ነው። የኛ ብር የመግዛት አቅም ተዳክሞ ነገር ግን የዶላር የመግዛት አቅም እንዲጨምር የተደረገበት ሁኔታ አለ። ያን አሁን የኢትዮጵያ መንግስት ፈልጎ ያደረገው አይደለም። ይሄን የፖሊሲ ማሻሻያ ያደረገው በእነ አይኤምኤፍ እና ወርልድ ባንክ ጫና ነው። ስለዚህ በእነዚህ አይነት ጫናዎች ምክንያት እንደዚህ አይነት ትልቅ የሆነ የፖሊሲ ሽፍት የሚደረግ ከሆነ we call it punctuated equilibrium policy model of policy change እንለዋለን ማለት ነው። so in this model of policy change major policy changes occur due to what external shocks and shifts in policy beliefs. Okay, so in order to summarize there are 7 types of policy changes. There are 7 types of policy changes. The first one is comprehensive rationality. Decisions are made by evaluating cost and benefit. The second one is second-based rationality. Democratic decision has no place in these types of decision. And the third one is disjointed incrementalism. We decide gradually for the implementation of our policy. And the other one is bounded rationality. Policymakers make only good enough policy because of different constraints like time, money, resource, and so on. And the fifth one is erotic rationality. Policy making involves questioning and answers. The sixth one is simultaneous convergence. Policy changes occur when problems, policies, and policies are aligned. And the last one is punctuated equilibrium. Okay, when there is a policy change because of external factors. So you have to remember this policy model of policy changes, whether for your exit exam or for your future careers. Okay. The other discussion point for the contents of chapter 2 of the course is uses of policy analysis in practice. So policy analysis improves policy making by different means. For example, policy analysis improves policy making by structuring problems, by forecasting outcomes, by prescribing solutions, by monitoring implementation, and by evaluating performance. So this is as a recap because we are discussing in detail about those points. Okay, now let us discuss about some points in chapter 3. It is all about structuring policy problems. So in chapter 2, as you remember, we are discussing the use of policy analysis. Policy analysis have 5 importances. Among them, the first one is it helps us to structure problems. So let us discuss about this one in chapter 3. Okay. So policy problems are unrealized needs or opportunities for improvement. They are unintended and unrealized. Problem structuring is critical to policy analysis, as analysis often fail by solving the wrong problem. Okay, in order to solve the right problem, first of all, we have to make what? A clear structuring of that problem which is found in that policy. So structuring problem is the first and the most important step in policy analysis. Okay. So we have to conduct problem structuring in a critical way to policy analysis because policy analysis fail by solving wrong problems, as you see from the slide. Okay. Analysis seem to fail more often because policy analysis solve the wrong problem than because they get the wrong solution to the right problem. Okay. So structuring involves different steps: identifying elements of a problem, stakeholders, objectives, and alternatives. So by following these steps, we have to structure our problems. So what is the difference between policy problem structuring and problem solving? So maybe there may be some questions related to the difference between problem structuring and problem solving in policy analysis. Those are two different terms. So problem structuring means conceptual focus on defining the problem. Okay, they are designed to solve rather than structure a problem. Okay, problem solving is primarily technical in nature. In contrast, problem structuring, which is primarily conceptual. Okay, problem structuring conceptual ነው። ኦኬ ተግባራዊ ያልሆነ ግን በዚህ መንገድ ይሄ ችግር አለ፣ በዚህ መንገድ ይሄን ችግር እንፈታዋለን ብለን ልክ ኮንሴፕቹዋላይዝ የምናደርገው ፕላንድ የምናደርገው ገና አእምሯችን ላይ ያለ ነው። ሶ it is conceptual. It focus on only defining the problem. ችግሩን ምን ማድረግ ነው? መለየት፣ ዲፋይን ማድረግ ወይም የችግሩን 50% ምን ማድረግ ነው? መስራት የምንለው ማለት ነው። so it is defining the problem. But problem solving, it is technical. Okay, problem structure is conceptual, remember. Problem solving is technical. Focus on what? Finding solutions. በዛ ፕሮብሌም መፍትሄው ምን ማድረግ ነው? ማግኘት ነው። ሶ you have to identify the difference between problem structuring and problem solving. Those are the most two important terminologies in policy analysis. Okay. So what is the method of problem structuring? Problem structuring has its own methods. Okay. At least there are 7 problem structuring methods. The first one is boundary analysis. It is defining the scope of the problem. Okay, we have to define the scope of the problem, how the problem is severe, how the problem is critical. Okay, የችግሩን ስፋት የችግሩን ጥልቀት የችግሩን ባውንደሪ አናላይዝ የምናደርግበት we call it boundary analysis እንለዋለን። This is the first step in problem structuring. The second one is classificational analysis. Okay, classificational analysis. This one is categorizing elements of the problem. The third one is hierarchy analysis. Okay, this is the third step in problem structuring. This means we have to organize problem elements hierarchically. Okay, we have to make a hierarchy. ደረጃ እናወጣላቸዋለን። ኦኬ ለየናቸው ችግሮች ሃይራርኪ ወይም ደረጃ ማውጣት ማለት ነው። መጀመሪያ ላይ የሚቀመጥ ወይም በመጀመሪያ ደረጃ የሚፈታ፣ በሁለተኛ ደረጃ፣ በሶስተኛ ደረጃ፣ በአራተኛ ደረጃ እያል የሚፈቱበትን ደረጃ ሃይራርኪ ልናወጣ እንችላለን። ወይም ደግሞ የትኛው ፕሮብሌም የመለጠ ሰቨር ነው አንገብጋቢ ነው ብለን ደግሞ ከችግሮቹ ስፋት አንጻር ደግሞ ሃይራርኪ ልናወጣ እንችላለን። ሶ hierarchy analysis is the second step in problem structuring. The fourth one is synthetic and brainstorming. Okay, synthesis or brainstorming is the fourth method of problem structuring. This means we have to generating creative solutions. Okay, as this step we have to generate solutions. That means we have to go to the problem solving step. ትክክለኛ የሆኑ ሶሉሽኖችን ወይም ለዛ ችግር ትክክለኛ የሆኑ መፍትሄዎችን ጀነሬት የምናደርግበት ስቴፕ we call it synthetics or brainstorming. The fifth one is multiple perspective analysis. Okay, multiple perspective analysis. This one is considering diverse viewpoints. Okay, we have to see diverse solutions. There may be multiple solutions for one single problem. Okay, we have to not only focus on one solution, we have to see multiple viewpoints, diverse viewpoints. Okay, ለአንድ ችግር መፍትሄዎችን በተለያየ ዳይሬክሽን በተለያየ ቪው መመልከት ማለት ነው። so we call it multiple perspective analysis. And the sixth method of problem structuring is assumption analysis. Okay, assumption analysis. This one is examining underlying assumptions. Okay, there may be assumptions. In what assumptions we are based to solve that problem? ታሳቢ የምናደርጋቸው ታሳቢዎች ምንድን ናቸው? ያን ችግር ለመፍታት ለምሳሌ ያለንን ሀብት ታሳቢ ማድረግ መቻል አለብን። ያለንን የሰው ኃይል ታሳቢ ማድረግ መቻል አለብን። ያለንን ወይም ሊገጥመን የሚችለውን ፖለቲካል ኢንቫይሮንመንት ታሳቢ ማድረግ አለብን። ሊገጥመን የሚችለውን ግሎባል ኢንፍሉዌንስ ታሳቢ ማድረግ አለብን። ፎር ኤግዛምፕል የኢትዮጵያ መንግስት አሁን የገንዘብ ፖሊሲን አሁን ካለበት በራሴ ፍላጎት ልቀይር ቢል ታሳቢ ማድረግ ያለበት ነገር አለ። ለምሳሌ ዓለም አቀፍ ተቋማት ጫና፣ ቅድም እንደነገርኳችሁ እነ ወርልድ ባንክ እነ አይኤምኤፍ ከነሱ ፖሊሲ ጋር የማይጣጣም ከሆነ ጫና ሊያሳድሩ ይችላሉ። ሶ እነዚህን አሳምፕሽኖች ማድረግ አለብን፣ አናላይሲስ መስራት አለብን። ሶ አሳምፕሽናል አናላይሲስ ኢዝ the other step in problem structuring. Okay, and the last one is argumental argumentation mapping. Okay, argumentation mapping is the last step in problem structuring. This means structuring policy arguments. Different policies have different arguments based on their goal and objective. So we have to structure just policy arguments based on our objective of analysis. So these are the methods of problem structuring. Remember, there are 7 types of problem structuring in policy analysis. The first one is boundary analysis, defining the scope of the problem, classificational analysis, categorizing elements of the problem, hierarchy analysis, organizing problem elements hierarchically, and synthesis and brainstorming. This one is generating creative solutions for that identified problem, and multiple perspective analysis. We have to considering diverse viewpoints in structuring our problem. And the sixth one is assumption analysis. We have to assume different or we have to plan different assumptions. And the last one is argumentation mapping.